war between humans and the Zilari Empire had ended, but peace did not feel like peace. Cities on Earth still smoked. The sky still carried the smell of fire and metal. People whispered that Earth had lost its soul long before it lost the war. Ethan Walker sat in a small metal room inside the United Nations bunker. He was only 27, a pilot who had fought in the last battle of Mars Station. Now he was a prisoner of peace. Soldiers watched him like he was dangerous even though his hands were chained. Outside, alien ships floated in the sky. Massive, silver, alive. The Zilari did not build their ships. They grew them, and now they ruled the stars. The door opened. A tall alien with pale green skin and long silver hair stepped inside. Her eyes glowed like liquid steel. She wore armor that looked alive, breathing with soft light. "Human Ethan Walker," she said, her voice calm but strong. "Stand." Ethan rose slowly. His heart pounded. "I am General Vera Zelthar of the Zilari Empire," she said. "By order of the Council, you will be my husband." Ethan blinked, thinking it was a cruel joke. "You're what?" "Your people lost the war," she said. "The Council decided there must be union. Marriage between human and Zilari will show peace. You were chosen." Ethan felt sick. "Chosen? I didn't agree to this." Vera looked at him with no emotion. "You don't have to agree. It is law." The guards removed his chains and stepped back. Ethan wanted to shout, to run, but he knew there was nowhere to go. Outside were alien soldiers with plasma rifles and ships that could destroy a city in seconds. He stared at her. "You could marry anyone, why me?" For a moment she hesitated. Her glowing eyes flickered. "Because you survived Mars Station. You killed 3 of my captains. The Council says only a strong human should be matched with me." Her words burned him inside. They wanted to humiliate him, to make him a trophy. "I'll never be your pet," Ethan said coldly. Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Then you will have to survive being my equal." The wedding was held on an alien ship orbiting Earth. The chamber was filled with both humans and Zilari leaders. Everyone wore masks of peace, but their eyes were full of hate. Ethan stood beside Vera, feeling like he was walking into his own grave. She was taller than him, older, her face sharp and elegant, her presence heavy like thunder. When the priest spoke in the alien tongue, Ethan understood only a few words: bond, unity, control. The Zilari placed a glowing band around his wrist. It burned into his skin, sending light crawling through his veins. He clenched his jaw but did not scream. Vera's hand touched his shoulder. Her skin was warm, almost burning. The priest said something that made the crowd cheer. Ethan realized it was done. He was now married to an alien general 33 years older than him. The humans watching from Earth called him a traitor. The aliens called him property. Only Vera remained silent. That night, in their new quarters aboard the ship, the silence between them felt like a storm waiting to break. Ethan sat near the window, staring at the blue Earth below. "So this is it? Peace through marriage?" Vera removed her armor. Underneath, her skin shimmered like silver dust. Scars crossed her arms, proof of many wars. "Peace is a word politicians use when they are afraid," she said. "This marriage is not for peace. It is for control." Ethan turned to face her. "Control of me?" "Control of everything," she replied. "They want to prove humans can be owned." He frowned. "And you agreed to this?" Her eyes glowed brighter. "I obey orders. I always have." Something in her voice sounded tired, almost human. Ethan noticed her hands trembled slightly when she spoke. He wondered if she hated this as much as he did. Then she walked closer. "The Council watches us," she said. "They want proof this marriage is real. We must act the part." Ethan's heart pounded. "You mean pretend?" "Yes," she said softly. "Pretend well enough to live." She reached out and touched his arm. The light from her band and his mixed for a second, and something strange happened. A pulse of heat ran through him. His vision blurred. For a moment he felt her heartbeat, her thoughts, pain, anger, and something deeper like regret. He pulled back, shocked. What was that? Her expression changed. She looked almost frightened. "That should not have happened." "What do you mean?" "The bond. It was only supposed to mark ownership. It should not connect us." Ethan touched his glowing wrist. The light was fading but left a strange warmth in his blood. "Maybe your magic thing is broken." Vera looked at him sharply. "This is not magic, human. It is technology older than your planet." She stepped back, her face unreadable. "Do not tell anyone about this. Do you understand?" He nodded slowly. What happens if I do? Then they will take you apart to find out why. The silence returned, heavier than before. Vera turned toward the door. Rest. Tomorrow we travel to my world. Ethan looked out the window again. Earth was getting smaller, fading into the dark. He whispered to himself, I'll find a way home. Behind him, Vera paused as if she heard. She said quietly, You might find more than you expect, human. The door closed, and for the first time Ethan realized this was not only a forced marriage. It was the beginning of something much stranger and far more dangerous. The alien night was silent, but Ethan couldn't sleep. The stars outside the window were unfamiliar, distant, cold, and endless. He sat alone in his chamber aboard the Zilari flagship, listening to the deep hum of the ship's living walls. The walls pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of a giant creature. He stared at the glowing band on his wrist. It had dimmed since the ceremony, but every few minutes it flickered as if it were alive. Every time it pulsed, Ethan felt something stir in his chest, a faint echo of emotion that wasn't his own. Sometimes it felt like anger, sometimes like sorrow. He didn't understand it, but he knew one thing. Whatever had happened between him and Vera during the bonding was not normal. Hours later, the door slid open. Vera entered quietly, her tall figure wrapped in a dark cloak. Her silver eyes glowed even in the shadows. You are still awake, she said softly. I can't sleep, Ethan replied. Hard to relax when you're kidnapped, married to your enemy, and stuck on a ship made of muscle. Her lips curved slightly, half amusement, half pity. You speak boldly for a human who has no power. I've already lost everything, he said. So what's left to fear? For the first time she seemed to hesitate. Courage and foolishness are close cousins, she murmured. Then she stepped closer and sat across from him. There was silence between them. The faint hum of the ship filled the air like distant thunder. Finally, Ethan asked, Why me? Why did they pick you to marry me? She looked down, her metallic fingers tracing the edge of the table. Because I was the perfect weapon and the perfect punishment. He frowned. Punishment? Yes, she said quietly. I was a general. I questioned the council's orders. I told them our war against humanity was not needed. For that, they took my command and gave me you. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. So they forced you too? Vera's eyes lifted to his, glowing faintly. Yes, the council calls this a symbol of peace. But in truth, it is a cage for both of us. Ethan felt a strange mix of anger and pity. She was proud, powerful, terrifying, and yet she was trapped like him. He said slowly, Then why do you still follow their rules? Because rebellion is death, she whispered. And I am not ready to die, not yet. The ship shuddered suddenly. A sharp alarm echoed through the halls. Vera rose instantly. Stay here, she ordered, but Ethan followed her out. They stepped into the main corridor, its walls alive with blue light. A group of alien soldiers ran past them, shouting in Zilari. Vera grabbed one by the shoulder. What is happening? The soldier's eyes widened at the sight of Ethan. Intruders, General. Human saboteurs. They boarded the lower decks. Ethan's heart jumped. Humans. He hadn't seen another human since the wedding. Vera turned sharply. Seal all gates. Do not harm the prisoners. Bring them to me. When she looked back, Ethan saw a strange expression in her eyes, part fear, part calculation. Moments later, soldiers dragged in 3 human men, wounded, dirty, and furious. They looked at Ethan in shock. Walker? One of them gasped. They said you were dead. Ethan's voice trembled. Captain Miller? How did you get here? The captain spat blood. We escaped from their prison on Mars base, tried to hijack this ship. Guess we failed. Vera's soldiers raised their weapons, but she lifted a hand. Stand down. She walked to the prisoners and studied them in silence. Then she turned to Ethan. Do you want them alive? Ethan's stomach turned. What kind of question is that? It is a test, she said. The council will ask what I did with these men. If I kill them, they will believe my loyalty. If I let them live, they will doubt me. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low. So what will you choose? Vera's silver eyes softened. Something different. Hours later, the prisoners were gone. Ethan paced in their quarters, angry and confused. When Vera returned, her cloak was damp with rain from the ship's exterior deck. You killed them, Ethan said bitterly. No, she replied. I faked their deaths. They are alive. I sent them to the cargo pods. They will escape when we reach orbit. Ethan froze. You saved them? Vera looked away. Do not mistake this for mercy, human. I did it because your species still has value. Someday you might need them. He studied her face. You risked everything for them, why? For a moment she said nothing. Then quietly she answered, because I remember what it was like to fight for something real. She walked to the window, staring out at the glowing rings of her home planet, Solara Prime. I once believed our empire brought order, but now I see the truth. The council fears change, and you, human, are change. Ethan joined her by the window. You think we can change them? She shook her head. No, but we can survive them. And survival is the first step. The ship's lights dimmed as it prepared for descent. Below them, the alien planet shimmered with violet oceans and floating crystal cities. Vera turned to him one last time. There is something else you must know. The bond between us, it is evolving. It should not exist. If the council learns what happened during the wedding, they will take you away. Ethan felt his blood run cold. Take me away? For what? Her voice was barely a whisper. To study you. To tear you apart until they understand why your blood reacts to mine. He swallowed hard. Then what do we do? Her silver eyes met his. We pretend. We act loyal. But when the time comes, we fight. As the ship entered the alien sky, Ethan felt the band on his wrist pulse again. Stronger this time, like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. And for the first time he realized that their forced marriage had become something far more dangerous than either of them expected. The alien sky was violet and endless. Lightning danced between clouds made of shining gas. The air shimmered with silver dust as the Zilari ship descended toward the surface of Vera's homeworld. Ethan stood near the window, his heart beating fast. Below him stretched a world unlike anything he'd ever seen. Tall crystal towers floating over glowing oceans, massive roots rising from the sea like living bridges. The planet seemed alive, breathing in rhythm with the ship itself. Beside him, Vera watched silently. Her armor was gone. She wore a dark robe that flowed like liquid metal. For the first time, she didn't look like a soldier. She looked like someone carrying a heavy secret. You don't have to stare, she said without turning. I'm not staring, Ethan replied. I'm trying to figure out how your world breathes. It breathes through pain, she said quietly. Like all things that survive. They landed in the city of Vathar, a place of glowing bridges and spiraling towers made of transparent stone. The air tasted of electricity. Strange winged creatures flew through the sky, their cries echoing like songs. Solari soldiers bowed as Vera passed. Ethan noticed their eyes. They looked at her with fear, not respect. As they walked toward a massive palace carved into a living mountain, Ethan whispered, They don't trust you. They never did, she said. I was born to fight. They don't understand mercy. The palace gates opened, revealing a hall lined with statues of alien warriors. At the center stood a tall figure in golden armor, the High Chancellor of the Zilari Empire. General Vera, the Chancellor said, his voice cold and metallic. We welcome you home, and you're human. Ethan bowed slightly, unsure what else to do. The Chancellor circled him like a predator studying prey. So this is the human who survived Mars Station. You must be durable. Ethan stayed silent. He could feel the man's mind probing him, like cold fingers brushing his thoughts. His wristband pulsed in warning. Vera stepped in front of him. Enough, she said sharply. He is under my protection. The Chancellor's golden eyes flickered with amusement. Protection? Or attachment? Ethan didn't understand the words, but the tone made his blood run cold. Remember your place, General, the Chancellor said softly. You serve the Council, not your emotions. Vera bowed stiffly. Of course, Chancellor. When they left the hall, Ethan saw something in her eyes, something dangerous and fragile at the same time. Later that night, in their private quarters overlooking the alien city, the air felt heavy with silence. Ethan sat near the glowing balcony, staring at the two moons that hung in the purple sky. He turned when he heard Vera's armor drop to the floor. You shouldn't talk to him like that, he said. He's dangerous. So am I, she answered calmly. He almost smiled. You're different, though. Different doesn't mean safe, she said, sitting across from him. You should learn that. Ethan looked down at his glowing wristband. What's happening to this thing? It keeps pulsing, like it's alive. Farah hesitated. Because it is, he frowned. What do you mean? She leaned forward, her eyes glowing softly. The bond they placed on us was meant to connect command to obedience. But ours reacted differently. It merged deeper, too deep. I can feel your emotions. Sometimes your thoughts. Ethan stared at her. You can feel me. She nodded slowly. Right now you're afraid. But not of me. Of yourself, he swallowed hard. Can you hear what I'm thinking now? Vera tilted her head. Only the loudest parts. Ethan's cheeks burned. Then stay out of my head. Her lips curved. Then control your mind, human. They both went silent again. The air between them felt charged, as if the room itself could sense their confusion. A few hours later, Vera was asleep. Ethan sat awake, restless. The glow from his wrist was getting brighter, pulsing in rhythm with something deep in his chest. Suddenly, a sharp flash hit his mind. Images, feelings, pain. He gasped and fell to his knees. He saw flashes of fire, screams, alien cities burning. And through it all, Vera's face, younger, covered in blood, screaming as soldiers fell around her. When he opened his eyes, she was standing over him, breathing hard. You saw it, she whispered. Ethan nodded weakly. Your memories? The war. She looked away. The bond is growing stronger. Too strong. It was never meant to share memories. What happens if it keeps growing? He asked, her voice trembled slightly. It could kill us or make us something neither human nor Zalari. Ethan's heart pounded. So what do we do? She stood tall again, her warrior face returning. We hide it. No one must know. If the council learns, they will use you as an experiment and destroy me for failure. He stood up slowly. Then maybe it's time we stop obeying them. Her eyes narrowed. You talk like a soldier. I was one, he said. Still am, maybe. Vera walked closer, her silver eyes reflecting the twin moons. You don't understand, human. You can't fight them. The council's reach is endless. Their power, maybe, Ethan interrupted. But power always breaks when it fears something new. Maybe that's us. For the first time, she didn't argue. She just looked at him quietly, studying the strange light in his eyes. And then the ground shook. The walls flashed red. The ship's alarm screamed. Vera turned sharply toward the door. We're under attack. Who? Ethan asked. She touched her wrist, reading a holographic signal. Her face went pale. Rebel Zalari. And humans. They're working together. Ethan felt the bond on his wrist flare to life. His blood seemed to hum with energy. Stay behind me, she shouted. But when the doors exploded open and the room filled with smoke, Ethan didn't hide. Something deep inside him, something from the bond, came alive. He raised his hand and light burst from his palm, forming a glowing shield that blocked the enemy's fire. Vera turned in shock. That's impossible. Ethan's eyes glowed the same color as hers. Guess our bond had more surprises. As the battle raged around them, the truth became clear. The connection between them was no longer just energy. It was power, alive, dangerous, and growing stronger by the second. The smoke from the battle still hung in the air like ghosts. Ethan stood in the ruins of the chamber, his heart pounding, his hand still glowing faintly with strange silver light. Around him, alien soldiers lay unconscious, some Zalari rebels, some loyalists. The air crackled with the leftover energy from his shield. Vera turned toward him slowly. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes, those bright silver eyes, held something new. Fear. What did you do? She whispered. Ethan looked down at his shaking hands. I don't know, it just happened. The bond, she said quietly. It's changing faster than I thought. She stepped closer, scanning his pulse with her wrist device. The light around them flickered as she spoke in her alien tongue. You are carrying my energy pattern, she muttered. That shouldn't be possible. Guess your people didn't plan for this, Ethan said, trying to sound calm. Maybe we broke their rules. She looked up sharply. Then we must run. Now. They left the palace through the broken corridors, flames painting the walls orange and silver. The city outside was chaos, sirens wailing, ships burning in the sky. Humans and Zalari rebels were fighting side by side against the Chancellor's forces. Ethan followed Vera as she moved through the crowd like a shadow, her cloak torn, her sword drawn. "You said your empire was strong," he said. "Looks like it's falling apart." She didn't slow down. "The empire has been rotting for centuries. The rebels only gave it a push." They reached a landing pad where a small ship waited, but before they could board, a voice echoed through the smoke. "General Vera Zelthar." They both turned. A group of Zellari soldiers appeared, their armor black as night. At the front stood a tall alien with glowing blue veins and a cruel smile. "Commander Rax," Vera muttered. "Of course," he grinned. "The council ordered your arrest. They say you betrayed your people. For a human." Ethan raised his fists, but Vera held out her arm. "Don't," she said quietly. "He's mine," Rax laughed. "Still pretending to be the great general? You're nothing but a failed experiment now." Before Ethan could blink, Vera moved. Her sword flashed like lightning. Rax blocked, sparks flying as metal struck metal. The ground trembled with each hit. Ethan tried to help, but suddenly 2 soldiers grabbed him from behind. One raised a plasma blade, only to be thrown backward by a burst of glowing energy from Ethan's hand. The bond pulsed inside him again, wilder this time. His blood felt like fire. He could feel Vera's movements in his mind, her heartbeat, her focus, her rage. He moved with her without thinking, blocking shots before they came, dodging blades as if they were sharing one mind. Rax stumbled, eyes wide. "What, are you two?" Vera's sword pierced his armor, ending the question forever. She stood over his body, breathing hard. "We're the mistake your council made," she said coldly. They boarded the small ship and lifted off into the storm. Below them, the capital city burned like a dying sun. The rebellion had begun. As the ship broke through the atmosphere, Ethan looked back. "Your home is burning," he said softly. Vera didn't answer right away. Her hands tightened on the controls. "It was never home," she said finally. He watched her for a long moment. "So where do we go now?" She glanced at him. "Somewhere the council can't reach. There is a moon called Kalis, a wasteland full of outcasts. They call it the graveyard of the forgotten." "Sounds cozy," Ethan said dryly. Vera almost smiled. "You'll fit right in." Kalis was darker than he imagined. The sky was red, the ground cracked like glass. Broken ships from every world lay scattered across the sand. The air smelled of rust and smoke. Vera led the way through the wreckage, her steps silent. Ethan followed, his wristband faintly glowing like a living compass. They found shelter inside the remains of a human cargo ship. It was quiet, cold but safe. For the first time in days, they could breathe. Ethan sat on a broken crate. "You fought your own people," he said. "You could have stayed loyal." Vera removed her cloak, revealing burn marks along her arms. "Loyalty to corruption is not honor," she said simply. "My people forgot what they stood for. Maybe yours did too." He looked at her, realizing how tired she seemed, tired of war, tired of lies. "Why did you save me?" he asked suddenly. "You could have killed me when they forced us to marry." Vera was silent for a moment. Then she said softly, "Because I saw something in you the council doesn't understand. You refused to bow." She met his eyes. "And I needed someone who still remembers what freedom feels like." Their gazes held for a long moment. The bond between them pulsed again, stronger, warmer. Ethan felt her emotions flicker through him. Anger, pain, and something gentler beneath it. He stood and stepped closer. "We can fight them together, you know. Humans and Zellari both. We can make them see the truth." Her voice was low. "The council will kill us both before they ever see. Then we make them look," he said. "We make them afraid." Vera studied him silently, then nodded. "Then we begin here. On this dead moon, we will build what they fear most." "What's that?" Ethan asked. She turned toward the stars, her silver eyes shining. "Hope." Hours later, as they rested by the broken hull of the ship, Ethan heard distant noises outside. Voices, human voices. He stepped out, heart pounding, and saw a group of survivors, men and women in ragged armor. They raised their weapons when they saw him. "Are you one of us?" a woman asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "Depends who us is." When Vera appeared behind him, the survivors froze in shock. But instead of running, they slowly lowered their weapons. A man stepped forward. "We've been waiting for someone to fight with us. You're the human married to the alien general, aren't you?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, that's me." The man looked at Vera. Then maybe we finally have a chance. As the twin suns rose over Kalis, Vera watched the growing crowd of rebels, human and Zalari alike, gathering under one banner. Ethan stood beside her. Looks like they're ready to follow you. She looked at him. No, she said softly. They'll follow us. And for the first time she smiled, not as a general, not as an alien, but as someone who finally believed in something worth fighting for. The red dawn rose over the dead moon Kalis, painting the desert with fire. Ethan stood on the edge of a broken cliff, wind tearing through his hair, watching the horizon where hundreds of rebel fires burned. Humans and Zalari stood together below, repairing ships, building weapons from scraps, turning wreckage into hope. For the first time in years, the two races shared the same sky without war. But peace on Kalis was fragile. Behind Ethan, Vera watched in silence. Her silver armor had been replaced by dark, flexible plates made from scavenged alien metal. A mark of rebellion now crossed her face, a black line over her left eye. They're not soldiers, Ethan said quietly. They're survivors. Vera's gaze stayed on the rebels below. Survivors become soldiers when they have something worth dying for. He turned to her. Do you have something worth dying for? She looked at him, eyes calm but sad. I thought I lost it long ago, but maybe it found me again. Days passed. The rebellion grew. Humans brought old Earth tech, radio signals, fuel cells, and rifles. Zalari rebels shared stolen energy cores and shield crystals. Together, they built a base inside the bones of a fallen ship so large it could have once swallowed mountains. Ethan trained the humans. Vera trained the aliens. They learned each other's ways, their strengths and flaws. At night they planned. But every plan ended the same way. If the Empire discovered them, Kalis would burn. That warning came sooner than expected. One morning, the ground shook. A shadow passed over the desert, massive ships descending through the sky like thunderclouds. The Zalari Empire had found them. Alarms wailed across the camp. Rebels ran to their stations. Ethan grabbed his blaster and sprinted toward the command tower. Vera was already there, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. The Chancellor's fleet, she said. He came himself, Ethan's jaw clenched. Then this isn't a raid. It's extermination, she nodded. He will burn this moon to ash just to erase us. Then let's give him a reason to remember us, Ethan said. Vera turned to her soldiers. All units, prepare to engage. Humans to the turrets, Zalari to the shield lines. No retreat. Her voice carried across the base like thunder. Even those who had once hated each other now shouted her name. The sky exploded with fire. Zalari warships rained plasma on the surface, shaking the desert. The rebels returned fire with everything they had. Missiles, energy cannons, even reprogrammed alien drones. Ethan took command of the Western defense. He shouted orders, dodging falling debris as his team blasted enemy drop pods from the sky. But the Empire was overwhelming. For every ship they shot down, 2 more appeared. Vera fought on the front line. Her sword burned with blue fire as she cut through armored soldiers. Ethan saw her surrounded, fighting like a storm given form. Then a loud, cold voice echoed through the air, broadcast from the lead ship. General Vera Zelthar, the Chancellor's voice thundered. Surrender yourself and your human abomination. End this rebellion before I erase your people completely. The battlefield went silent. Everyone turned toward her. Vera looked up at the sky. You call this peace? She shouted. You call this order? You destroyed our honor long ago. The Chancellor's voice was calm. You betrayed your kind for an animal. Ethan grabbed the comm beside her. Then this animal bites back, he said, firing a rocket that hit the Chancellor's flagship square in the hull. The explosion lit the sky. The battle roared again. Hours passed. The rebels fought like they had nothing left to lose. Ethan's hands were burned, his armor cracked, but he kept fighting beside his people. Suddenly, the ground split open near the base, revealing a buried weapon, half machine, half alive. Vera ran to it, eyes wide. What is that? Ethan shouted. It's one of the old ones, she said. A living weapon from before the Empire. She pressed her glowing hand to the core. Help me awaken it. The bond between them flared instantly. Their wrists blazed with light. The machine responded, its dormant eyes glowing. Energy surged through the ground, spreading across the battlefield. The weapon rose, a massive creature of light and steel. It unleashed a beam that tore through the Empire's fleet like paper. The rebels cheered. The tide was turning, but power always has a price. The light around Vera's hand turned from silver to red. Her body shook violently. "Vera!" Ethan shouted, running to her. "Stop, it's draining you!" She fell to her knees, blood glowing through her veins. "It has to be done." Ethan grabbed her shoulders. "You'll die!" Her eyes met his, weak but fierce. "Then I'll die free." He couldn't let that happen. Without thinking, he pressed his hand over hers, forcing the bond to share the pain. The energy split between them. Half her, half him. The weapon unleashed one final strike, obliterating the Chancellor's fleet. Silence fell. The sky cleared. Ethan collapsed beside her, gasping for breath. The moon was quiet again. The rebels slowly gathered around them, their faces filled with awe and disbelief. "The fleet is gone," a soldier whispered. We won." Ethan looked down at Vera. She was barely conscious, her body glowing faintly. "You're not dying," he said. "Not today," she smiled weakly. "You always were too stubborn, human." Then she closed her eyes. That night the rebels buried their dead under the red sands. Fires burned quietly, not for war, but for remembrance. Ethan sat beside Vera's medical pod, watching her breathe. She was alive, but the bond between them flickered weakly, like a fading heartbeat. He whispered, "You said we'd give them something to fear. I think we did." Outside, the stars shimmered softly. Somewhere beyond them, the Empire was wounded, but not gone. And as Ethan closed his eyes, he felt her voice inside his mind again, faint but certain. "This is not the end, human. This is the beginning." Silence filled the rebel base. The air smelled of smoke, metal, and old blood. Only the faint hum of the medical pod broke the stillness. Ethan sat beside it, his face pale and tired, watching Vera through the glass. Her silver skin had lost its shine. The faint glow of the bond on her wrist. Their bond flickered weakly like a candle dying in the wind. 3 days had passed since the battle. The rebels called it a victory. But to Ethan it felt hollow. He'd saved the rebellion, and lost her. He pressed a hand to the glass. "You said we'd fight together," he whispered. "Don't you dare leave me now." The pod lights dimmed, then flickered once, almost like she'd heard him. Outside, the rebels worked in silence. Kalis was quiet, the sky bruised purple from smoke and storm. Rumors spread that the Empire was regrouping, this time with something worse than ships. Ethan walked through the camp, exhausted, his uniform stained with dust and ash. He passed human engineers fixing weapons beside Zilari healers. It was strange. 2 species, once enemies, now brothers in arms. But peace had a price. Supplies were low, morale lower, and their leader, their symbol, was unconscious. Then one night everything changed. A sudden flash of light tore through the sky. A black ship appeared above the camp, small, fast, and unlike any the rebels had seen. Before anyone could react, a voice echoed from its speakers. "Human Ethan Walker. You are ordered to surrender the alien female known as General Vera Zelthar. Do so and the Empire will spare your people." Ethan's blood turned cold. "They found us," the ship descended, firing warning shots. The ground exploded near the medical bay. Ethan ran inside. "We're moving her now." He tried to lift Vera from the pod, but alarms screamed and smoke filled the air. The rebels fired back, chaos everywhere, then another flash. A beam of blue light hit the pod. Ethan was thrown backward as the glass shattered. When he opened his eyes, Vera was gone. "No," he shouted, running outside. The black ship was already rising, carrying her away. He fell to his knees, watching it vanish into the clouds. His heart felt hollow, but then he felt it. A pulse on his wrist. The bond. She was still alive. Hours later, Ethan stood in the command tent, his eyes burning with determination. The rebel leaders tried to stop him. "You can't go alone," said Captain Miller. "That ship went back to the Empire's core. It's suicide." Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. "Then I'll die trying." He strapped on his armor, holstered his blaster, and grabbed a stolen Zilari flight key. "If she's alive, I'll find her," someone whispered. "He's just one man." Ethan turned. "No, I'm her bond." And with that, he walked into the night. The journey to the Empire's capital world took 2 days. He flew through storms of debris, past dying suns and wrecked fleets. Every hour, he felt the bond pulling him, guiding him, like a heartbeat leading him home. When he reached Solara Prime, the sight took his breath away. The once golden world was now dark, its skies filled with warships. The palace stood like a black heart, glowing with crimson light. Ethan's ship crashed through the lower docks. He leapt out, blaster ready, hiding in the shadows. The air here was heavy, full of whispers like the planet itself was alive. And in the distance, through the bond, he heard her voice. Ethan. It was faint, broken, but it was her. Inside the palace, the halls were lit with living veins of red light. Ethan moved silently through corridors filled with alien guards. He used his new energy, their power, to create silent pulses, freezing cameras, bending shadows. He found her deep underground, inside a glass chamber glowing blue. She hung suspended in energy, tubes running through her body, her eyes half open. Two Zilari scientists stood nearby, recording data. Ethan's rage burned like fire. He aimed, fired twice, clean shots. Both fell before they could scream. He rushed to her, shattering the glass. The energy field collapsed and she fell into his arms, weak but breathing. Her eyes fluttered open. "You came," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Told you I'd find you." She tried to speak, but he placed a finger on her lips. "Don't talk. We're leaving." But as he turned, alarms blared. Doors slammed shut, and from the shadows the Chancellor stepped out. "You never disappoint, human," the alien leader said coldly. "Always running toward death." Ethan raised his blaster. "Then let's run together." The Chancellor laughed. "Do you even know what she is? That bond between you, it's not love, it's evolution." Ethan froze. "What are you talking about?" "She's not dying," the Chancellor said. "She's changing. And so are you." He lifted his hand. "You two were never meant to exist. You are the fusion of human defiance and Zilari will. Together you can destroy both our species." Ethan's eyes hardened. "Then maybe it's time both species started over." He fired, but the Chancellor moved too fast, striking him with a wave of energy. Ethan hit the ground hard, his body trembling. Vera's voice screamed in his mind. The bond exploded with light, linking them again. Ethan rose, glowing silver and blue. Vera stood beside him, her eyes alive once more. Their energy merged, surrounding them both. The Chancellor stepped back, his expression turning to fear. "Impossible." Ethan smiled grimly. "You said it yourself, evolution." Together they released the power of the bond. The chamber shattered, the palace walls cracked, and the light swallowed everything. When the light faded, the palace was gone. The capital lay silent. Ethan and Vera stood in the ruins, surrounded by ash and wind. She was weak but alive. He supported her with one arm. "You came for me," she whispered. "I always will," he said. She smiled faintly. "Then we're already winning." He looked up at the shattered sky. "No," he said softly. "We're just getting started." And far above them, in the silent orbit of the ruined planet, rebel ships began to appear, one after another, answering the call of a new dawn. The sky above Solara Prime no longer glowed gold. It burned with quiet blue fire. The palace was gone. The Emperor was gone. And for the first time in centuries, the stars above the alien capital shone unchained. But the silence that followed the battle was heavy. Too heavy. Ethan stood at the edge of the ruins, the cold wind brushing dust across his face. Beside him, Vera sat on a broken stone pillar, her breathing shallow, her silver skin pale. The glow from their wrists, once bright and powerful, was fading. The bond that had saved them was dying. "Your heart is slowing," Ethan whispered. Vera gave a tired smile. "So is yours." He laughed softly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's not funny." "It's truth," she said. "Our bond was never meant to last. The power we released, it burned the connection too deep. It's eating us from the inside." Ethan stared at her glowing wrist. The light inside was pulsing slower now. "We can find a way to stop it. There has to be something." She shook her head. "There is only one way. One of us must break the link. End it." He froze. "You mean one of us has to die?" Her eyes softened. "No, human. One of us must let go." The wind howled through the ruins like a voice from the past. All around them, the city of the Zilari Empire lay broken, Its towers fallen, its armies gone. Rebel ships hovered above, scanning for survivors, broadcasting messages of freedom across the galaxy. Ethan could hear the static-filled transmissions through his comm. "This is Captain Miller. The Human-Zilari Alliance stands victorious. The Empire has fallen." But the words didn't sound like victory. They sounded like goodbye. Vera rose slowly. The light around her body flickered brighter, almost painfully. "The bond's energy must be released, or it will destroy everything around us. The planet, the ships, everyone." Ethan grabbed her arm. "Then I'll take it. Let me hold it instead." She turned to him gently. "You're strong, but you're still human. Your body can't contain this kind of power. You'd burn in seconds." "Then we burn together," he said. Vera touched his face, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "You're stubborn, just like the first day I met you." "And you're still bossy," he said with a weak grin. For a moment the war and the pain faded. They were just two beings who had once been enemies, now standing as one heartbeat. But time was running out. Lightning streaked across the sky, striking the towers. The air itself began to hum. The bond between them was reaching its limit. The blue light that connected their wrists was spreading across their veins, rising toward their hearts. Vera stepped back. "Ethan, listen to me. When I release the energy, you must let me go." "No," he said firmly. "We do this together. If you try to hold on, it will kill us both," she said. Her voice trembled. "Please don't make me fight you too." Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her that he couldn't lose her. Not now. Not after everything. But deep inside he could feel the truth. The bond was both gift and curse. If it stayed, it would consume them, and the world they'd just freed. He swallowed hard. "You always said the bond was never meant to exist." Vera nodded. "But it was meant to change us." She stepped into the center of the ruins, her body glowing brighter with every breath. Energy spiraled around her like ribbons of silver light. The air shimmered. Dust lifted from the ground. Ethan followed her, refusing to stand still. "What are you doing?" She turned to him. "Giving them peace." Her voice echoed across the valley as she raised her arms. The light from her body spread across the ruins, flowing into the broken stone and steel. The ground trembled. "Stop!" Ethan shouted. "You don't have to do this alone." She smiled softly. "You gave me back my soul, Ethan Walker. Let me give you back your world." The light grew blinding. Ethan ran toward her, ignoring the burning in his skin. "Vera." She looked at him one last time. "You were never my prisoner, human. You were my reason." The bond flared once, so bright it turned night into day. And then, it broke. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was lying on the ground, surrounded by silence. The air was clear again. The lightning was gone. The energy had vanished. He sat up slowly, his heart aching. The glow on his wrist was gone. Vera was nowhere to be seen. Only the wind moved through the ruins. He whispered her name. "Vera." No answer. Only the faint shimmer of silver dust floating where she had stood. It drifted through the air, glowing softly in the morning light. Ethan knelt, letting the dust fall into his hand. "You kept your promise." He looked up at the sky. The clouds were clearing. The sun rose over Zilara Prime, its light touching every scar of war. In the distance, rebel ships circled the horizon, carrying humans and Zilari together into a new future. Weeks later, Ethan stood aboard a rebuilt human vessel, looking out over the stars. He was no longer a soldier, no longer a captive. The council was gone. The war was over, but part of him was missing. He often dreamed of her voice, soft, distant, but always there. Then one night, as he stood alone on the deck, the stars seemed to flicker. The bond mark on his wrist glowed faintly, just once. And in his mind he heard her voice again, calm and gentle. "You were never my weakness, human. You were my hope." Ethan smiled, tears shining in his eyes. Goodbye, Vera. He turned toward the stars, free, but forever changed, and as his ship vanished into the endless dark, a faint shimmer of silver light followed behind, like a promise that love, even across galaxies, never truly ends.